Hello everybody and welcome to week 8. I have some good news that I posted the other day. There isn't going to be a strike, knock on wood, which came as a huge relief to me and I hope a relief to all of you. So there is not going to be a new teacher and we'll continue on for the remaining weeks of the course. So glad that is all taken care of. So what I'd like to do today is kind of quickly debrief about last week and then introduce the readings and assignments for this next week, and I may, depending on the time frame that I have, I may split it up over 2 webcasts. So firstly, last week I had asked you guys to take a look at an assignment, sort of an assignment writing prompt from my research that I was conducting last year. And to give you a little bit more information on it, the student was 19 years old, and he is, oh goodness, I think he had been in Canada for about 4 years. I think he had come when he was around 15 or 16, and he was multilingual. His first language was Pashto, I think. He also spoke Urdu and Farsi. So English was his 4th language. And he had struggled a little bit in high school, trying to get caught up. At the time, he was going to sort of an adult high school because he had already largely was older than the traditional age that students and adolescents in high school. And he was also working to help support his family. So this writing course he was taking, he needed to write this paragraph, and it was a persuasive paragraph that he had to compose. So on the particular day, I watched him and his tutor work on this together, and he responded to the question number 8, I believe, where he had to give or to explain why cell phones should be banned while driving, why they may be dangerous. And he couldn't really think of anything, and he was having difficulty coming up with things, and his tutor did as well. The only thing that they seemed to come up with was the fact that they were distracting, and that's why they were problematic. So they would come up with other ideas like, well, they cause accidents, okay, but they cause accidents because they're distracting, Or he may say something like, they take your mind off the road. Well, okay, again, that's distracting. So all these reasons that came back to this core reason that they're distracting. So it was kind of frustrating because they couldn't think up more, 2 more reasons as to why. So the tutor was certainly frustrated, and she identified another tutor in this it was a literacy program, after school homework help literacy program. Identified another tutor who was actually a lawyer in Toronto, and the lawyer looked at the prompt and said, it's distracting, there are no other reasons, that's really what the law says, that's all there is to it. So that gave them some peace of mind that, even the lawyer says there's really only one reason. So what was interesting was, at least for me as a writing teacher and knowing what I know about what the literature says about crafting prompts, this was really frustrating for the student, and not only for the student but for the tutor as well, because the student felt sort of, he wasn't able to do it, and was it his fault? And the tutor was equally frustrated because she thought the prompt was setting the student up for failure. And I do too. I think had the teacher actually spent some time thinking through what possible answers there might be, he, and I believe it was a he, would have realized this prompt was not well thought out. And so in this case, it allows us to go back and think what the literature tells us, Reed and Kroll, for example, that thinking through the prompt, trying to answer it ourselves, which I know Mary was said in one of her postings she was trying to do, which I think is a great step, because I know for myself, I've written timed writing prompts only to sit down and try to do it myself and realize I can't do this. And if I can't do it, then largely the students may not be able to do it, or they may struggle with it, certainly. So, yeah, it's hard for me to hide my feelings about that prompt because I thought it was horrible and just very problematic in so many ways. And even though the prompt itself was a page, most of it is a list of these one-line questions, of how the student's going to respond. So I didn't find that the teacher actually gave enough explanation. And if you look at, for example, Swales and Feek, the book that I was commenting on last week, and the book that Barbara Eckert actually did a critique on, if you look at that book does a very nice job of setting up ways in which to start phrasing opening sentences or opening lines, for example, modeling examples. So what I would imagine this teacher could have done is maybe give the student ways in which to model an opening sentence. Very much, again, what Mary was doing. She gave a topic sense of how she would have responded to one of the prompts. Something like that not only should be done in class, I believe, but also should actually be included in the assignment itself, so the students can actually take it away and look at it and reflect on it. Because again, if you're in a class with multilingual writers, they may not get it all orally the first time. They may need to take it home and think about it, mull it over, ask questions about it. So providing all that additional support will, in the end, probably make it much easier for the student, much more successful, a pleasant experience, and for you as a writing teacher, a lot easier to look at. And this is something I may have mentioned, I think, on the first week of class. Paul Pryor, who is a compositionist, and he writes a lot in first and second language composition. In fact, he had an article in Journal of Second Language Writing in 2001 in which he talked about voice, and this is something I think I mentioned maybe also a couple weeks ago on voice. He said, in terms of teacher feedback, which relates to our next topic, that one of the ways that teachers can preempt, if that's the word I want to use here, problematic writing or spending hours giving feedback is to craft writing assignments that are crisply articulated, give plenty of details, give some sample expressions or ways of which to craft something that are relevant to the students in the course, where they are and what level they are. And framing all of this sort of pre-writing assignment activities will really benefit the students and help the teacher in the long run. So I think this is one example where a poor prompt caused lots and lots of frustration, not only on the student's part, but also on the tutor's part, and probably again later on the teacher's part. So that's all I have to say about that. I did want to thank everybody for their excellent dissections of that prompt and using the literature to talk about it in very meaningful and constructive ways. I think everybody did a great job, and you're right on the mark. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about, actually, we're about up for time, and so I'm going to stop now and do another podcast where I introduce the literature for next week.